SAB may have to dump more than 130 million litres of beer. Let's get some insight on this now. Zoleka Lisa is the Vice President of Corporate Affairs at SAB. She joins us via Skype. Zoleka, thanks indeed for talking to us. So you reportedly had some consultation with trade and industry. What have you highlighted about this problem and what's been the department's response?
Thank you, Devin, for having me. So yes, indeed, we've been actively engaging with government on the matter. As you may recall, when the President announced the national lockdown on the 23rd of March, SAB immediately stopped making any new brews. This effectively meant that we had to start a process that was agreed with the DTI of an orderly wind down to protect our assets and our inventory. However, Devin, as you may now know, we find ourselves in a very difficult situation where we have 132 million litres of beers in our tank, which roughly equates to 400 million bottles of beer that we are unable to transport and safely store in light of the current lockdown regulations.
Just give us a sense, why do we have to, in the first place, dump this inventory?
Devin, our intent as a business is firstly not to dump this inventory. If you look at the value of it, we're looking at roughly a value of 150 million rands to SAB, an excise contribution of roughly 500 million rand that's much needed by the state. The reason why we're now having to pursue this avenue is simply because the current regulations limit the ability for alcohol companies to transport a product to the warehouses.
2,000 jobs on the line, as the report suggests. Does that worsen if restrictions are not lifted soon?
We are indeed concerned around our ability to manufacture, distribute and operate and the impact that has on our business and our broader value chain. We have a value chain that supports roughly 250,000 jobs, Devin, and if these restrictions continue, we're looking at roughly 75,000 jobs being lost. Some of those may even be internally within SAB.
What do you want government to do?
I think, Devin, our ask is very clear. I think it's important that we now look to easing some of these restrictions so companies can operate. In our sense, it's easing of our transport regulations and really for government to engage with the industry to look at options for enabling trade. That means looking to work with us to ease the ban so we can start having off-consumption activity. This means that we'll enable this 250,000 employee base and workforce to start coming back to work. And as an industry and as a company, we've worked really hard to put in place some important protocols to enable a safe-to-return work policy.
Zoleka, there's still a question of the social implications of abruptly lifting the ban. Drinking is social, so there's a health risk there. We also had a very grim picture being painted the past few weeks on domestic violence. How do you reconcile that?
I think, Devin, it's important to know our ask is for home consumption, number one. So we're not advocating for gatherings. I think it's important to observe social distancing protocols. That's why we're saying it's a takeaway ask that we have. And I think it's important to then understand people are still drinking. There's a high illicit activity. And as a company, we are putting in place measures to tackle things like gender-based violence that we're seeing. We're putting together solutions. We've got WhatsApp platforms to deal with this matter. So I think it's important to balance the two narratives, working with clear facts.
All right, thanks very much indeed. Zoleka Lisa there from SAB Corporate Affairs. Now let's